Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your hosts, Adam Emmert.
Oh my God, I don't know if they want me back. It's such a young man's game.
And Brandan Schultz.
You know, if it took a Blair Walsh miss for him to realize that it was time to hang it up, okay, I'll take that.
Go Hawks!
This is episode 186 of the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz of the Military Seahawkers. And joining me, for now, my good buddy, Adam Emmert.
For now? Am I on the hot seat?
I don't know. It's time to make some changes for the Seahawks, Adam. And, you know, you're clearly someone who didn't help win any games this year.
You're right. You're saying that I had a down year production-wise? Is that basically it? Has the league caught up? Has the league caught up to my scheme?
I'm saying there's nothing that you did that earned the Seahawks a victory this year. I mean, how many times was the lucky hat at a game that the Seahawks won? That's
a good point. 0.
Yeah.
I screwed that up. But in my defense, I did try to help them win games early on in the season. They just didn't listen.
Well, that's why I brought you on here today, Adam. I brought you on to let you go.
You did. Well, appreciate the opportunity. It's been nice knowing you since kindergarten. This hurts. It stings. But I've got bigger and better opportunities. I'm starting a podcast on NPR. That's my next endeavor. It's going to sound a little different though. Instead of the way I'd be more like, and then in Uganda, the African tree frog died its final death as extinction events cover the world. I got to switch styles.
You gotta have to change your Twitter handle a little bit.
Yes.
Adam the Calm.
Adam the Calm. Yeah, exactly. Please tweet me at Adam the Calm. We're all going to die.
The good thing, though, about getting fired from a podcast, it doesn't pull your entire life in different directions. But for coaches and players who may not be here next year, that's not the case.
0% sympathy. No?
Not even 0. A little?
No, not even a little. Like, okay, you are well compensated. You know the game as you're getting into it. It's not like somebody sprung the rules on you halfway through that you might just get fired at the end of any given season or even in middle of the season. Like, this is the life that you and your family have signed up for. You're well compensated. It's supposedly the passion of your life, all that good stuff. Look, 0 sympathy. None. Like, that's just part of the gig. It's like somebody like feeling super bad for me that I have to drive on icy roads to go grind wheels. Well, yeah, that's how it works. Like, you got to drive places to go do it. And oftentimes it's in the winter. Like, what? Like, what? I'm going to sit and cry about it? No, I have 0 sympathy.
Yeah, but I like some of these guys and I don't want to see some of them go, but they're going to go anyway.
Oh, yeah?
Well, we'll get into it. There's been a lot of talk about some drastic changes coming in the offseason. I want to define drastic before we decide what drastic changes are. Mm-hmm. I do want to go over this final game against Arizona, because I think there's some things to talk about there. There's been some post-game press conference since then. I want to talk about that. I thought some of the comments from Doug Baldwin have been some of the more interesting comments.
No, it's interesting that you say that because we really hadn't talked much about it, but that was, out of all the pressers I listened to, that was the one that stood out to me.
His was the most interesting out of everyone on the team. So we'll get into that. And I want to talk a little bit about coaching philosophy and whether or not that may have been a problem. And also, before we get into it, I need to remind everybody who's in the Pick'em League that just because the regular season is over, Pick'em League's still going. So make your picks throughout the postseason. There's not a lot of room for movement, but if you don't make your picks, you'll only move down.
Yeah, that's true. But then you almost have to pretend to care about the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can still make
Maybe I'll do my pick'ems right now. This will take half a second. I ain't watching.
You're not watching?
Probably not. Not much, anyways.
Yeah.
Dude, you know, the one thing about the Seahawks losing and Cam Newton being a dumpster fire is that it did free up my Sundays a couple weeks early. I mean, get outside, man.
There's other things to do.
Other life stuff that now my Sundays are freed up.
I can clean my garage finally. Maybe get to some video games that I've been trying to play for a long time.
Yeah, it is getting to be about video game season. I'm going to bust out the Nintendo and Tecmo Bowl here probably in about a month.
There you go. Let's start off with this loss to Arizona. It ends on a missed field goal by Blair Walsh. It starts with a 20-7 deficit where the offense does absolutely nothing through the entire first half. Then they rage back in the second half, only to miss out on a field goal. But by the time it came time to kick that field goal, the Seahawks were already out of the playoffs. So I think maybe Blair Walsh did us a favor by getting us the number 18 draft pick instead of number 21.
Yeah, I guess that's probably about the only time that you should root for something like that. There's something to be said, I suppose. So thanks, Blair.
And I think you can safely say that Blair Walsh will probably not be kicking here next year. They already, just a couple days into the offseason, have brought in a former kicker from Jacksonville.
Really?
To check him out as a possible replacement, I think, or competition.
I hadn't seen that, so that is interesting. I think you're very correct that is the last time that you see Blair Walsh. I mean, Pete did his best in his post-game press conference, to kind of say, oh, hey, I mean, he's a real competitor. He's tried real hard, had this great opportunity to put all the demons behind him. He just couldn't quite get it, like he said all the right things, but none of it was, I'm sure he'll get it right next time, and I can't wait to trot him out there again, and blah, 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 blah. Like when he mouths unbelievable when he misses the field goal, I think that says everything that you need to know right there. Because in all honesty, 2 games this year cost us by the field goal kicker, 1 game by the coaching staff, and then that leaves another 4 losses on the offensive line. That's basically where your season boils down to right there.
That's how you're going to assign the blame, huh? Those few areas.
4, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
Yep. Offensive line for 4 of them, 2 to the kicker and 1 to the coaching staff.
Well, that's favorable to Blair Walsh then. That's less blame than I think some people are attributing.
Absolutely. That's why I wanted to bring that up, man. I think Blair Walsh is getting a disproportionate amount of the blame for this season. A major factor, yes, one of the top 3, but by far the second place thing in my mind.
And it's easy to point the finger at him, though, because having a good kicker in that position, one that makes you those kicks, that masks the other issues
Correct.
With the team. They're still there.
Right, and it's really easy to point at the kicker when he misses a couple, rather than it's hard to point at your left guard when he can't run block.
Sure.
It's more difficult to see. The direct result isn't as quick. Like, that's a whole game of sucking at left guard, whereas you go out there as a kicker and you just go, bink, miss it, and then all the blame's right there.
Yeah, and in that game, he had the Blair Walsh field goal to end it. Luke Wilson dropped a pass right near the goal line.
God, how many drop passes in this game?
Ugh.
I don't know how many times I stood up and yelled at the screen, catch the ball! Catch the ball! That's the first rule of being a receiver. Catch the catfish ball! Ugh.
I thought Tim Moon said it well about the Cardinals' loss. Your team losing to a Stanton-led offense is like getting your bank robbed by the Three Stooges. You have to do a lot wrong.
That's well said. I mean, we didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. If you get railroaded by Drew Stanton and Kerwin Williams, nope, you don't belong. Like, the first half, they ran it right down our throats. I mean, it wasn't so much Drew Stanton at that point. That was Kerwin Williams just gelling it right down our throats. 4 or 5 yards a pop. Kerwin Williams. Like, that's unacceptable.
That was unacceptable. The penalty yards extending drives, unacceptable.
Man.
Stupid penalties, too.
Look, that one on Thomas Rawls was a bunch of garbage, man. That's a bunch of garbage. The taunting call,
yeah,
that happens every single play. And that's the one you call it on? Okay. I mean, not that they shouldn't have thrown it, but I'm just saying that happens every single play. So I have a hard time with that one. Now, Bobby Wagner's personal foul, it was roughing the passer, correct?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What the catfish are you doing? Like,
and
what
Frank Clark,
doing?
too.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't hit him hard, but you just don't do that.
Just don't do that. That was frustrating.
And then really, again, the offense not moving the ball in the first half.
At all. It felt just like the Rams game to start with, almost.
And the Jacksonville game.
Yeah.
I mean, the last few games of the season after the Philly game.
Yeah, it basically, the offense took a giant dump the last 4 weeks of the season. Like, it just wasn't existent. Like, whatever the little bit of magic that they found there towards the middle of the season, where Jimmy's scoring touchdowns and Russell's got MVP talk going on and everything, the league kind of latched on and figured it out, and then that's all she wrote.
Did they figure it out, though? I'm having a hard time deciding if it's the league that figured it out, if it's the play calling, if it's the coaching. Because how can it go from being so poor in the first half to being able to roar back and come back in the second half every single time? That has to be coaching, because the talent is clearly there. It could be game plan, but you wouldn't plan to start that badly.
Doug Baldwin humbly disagrees, by the way. I mean, he, in his press conference, when he starts to talk, and this was the most interesting part to me. Everybody in that building, I think, knows exactly what the problem is, but they're not going to throw anybody under the bus about it. And you heard Doug Baldwin, especially in his post-game press conference, they asked him what the difference was between the first half performance and second half performance. And he goes, it was like, he said something along the lines of the idea that it was, he's like, yeah, we had this thing. And then he kind of pauses and his eyes shift over and he looks over in the corner of the room and kind of pauses for half a second, like somebody off to his right-hand side. Kind of like, should I say what the catfish reason is, or should I not? And then he comes back and he's like, yeah, but I'm not going to get into it. But it's not coaching. He says, we've got a fine game plan. It's that we don't execute it. And so I think him and the entire staff, the entire organization, they look at 2 or 3 guys and they know those are the guys, and that's the problem.
I don't know if he's talking, though, about players or coaches, because in an interview at his locker, Seattle Times, Bob Condotta reported on it. And I thought the comments there were a lot more interesting even than in the press conference. Here were some of his quotes. He said, so if I was to talk to you about what I believe are the issues, that wouldn't be protecting the team. And it's interesting that he says protecting the team, because that's one of Coach Carroll's rules.
Right. Yeah.
Part of me makes me wonder if he might be indirectly pointing the finger at Carroll, because here again, they're asking him about it.
Wow, yeah, no, I don't get that at all. I think it's about players. I mean, look, here is impassioned defense about for Darrell Bevell. Like, I mean, he went in the end of the year press conference, and it's not Bev, it's none of that, it's us. Like, I mean, he was pretty emphatic about the fact that it wasn't Coach Bevell.
I think Bevell is the least of the problems. If you were going to tell me a guy on the coaching staff that where the changes need to be made, Bevell would be lower on the list for me.
It's not a coaching problem. It's a personnel problem.
Well, there's a personnel problem, but I do think that there are coaching issues. I think a lot of it, you have to point to the top at Coach Carroll's philosophy. And I'm not saying that you need to get rid of Coach Carroll, because I would absolutely not say that.
Are you really complaining about Coach Carroll's offensive philosophy?
I'm saying the mentality of it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's showing up. He said that over and over, and it's showing up among the team, because clearly the team has the talent. And how would they not have the talent to start well? I think it's a mentality.
I think you're looking at it all backwards. This whole start and finish thing and everything, that's fine. I guess that's one theory. But the other part of Pete Carroll's offensive philosophy is run the ball to close a circle of toughness. And I think a lot of these first halves, when you see the Seahawks out there trying to get going, they're trying to run the ball. Now, they were woefully ineffective at it, but they were really trying to run the ball. And that ends with a lot of 3 and outs. And I think by the time halftime comes around, he goes, all right, screw it. I guess this is what we got to do. And they start winging it around a little bit.
Well, and that's the other part of it.
I mean, that opens it up for the running game just a little bit. But I think that's the bigger part of it. I don't think it's the philosophy of it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I think it's a philosophy of we have to run the damn ball. And both him and John Schneider, and maybe throw Coach Cable in with these 3, have done a gigantic disservice to this team by having us have an offensive line that is an absolute and utter joke show.
So if you know that you can't run the ball to start the game, why do you try week in, week out to do the same thing every time?
Because that you talk about a guy's philosophy and sticking to his core, that's who Pete Carroll is, and he's not going to change. And it's not wrong. It's not wrong. We weren't going to win. You're not going to win championships just running the spread offense with Russell Wilson out there winging it around every single game. Look, one of the reasons why we won a championship was that The defense was fresh when it was on the field and smacked the crap out of people because we were running the football, kept the ball out of the hands of the opposing offense. So every time our defense went out there, they were more physically dominant. You saw this year and even last year, the defense didn't have that same edge when you watched it for an entire game. But watch them for the first quarter when they were fresh. They were mollywomping people, just smacking them around. But since we couldn't keep it together on offense, they get stuck out on the field for way too long. And now you don't have that physically dominant team all the way through the game. And that's what the big problem is. And it all circles back to the running game, which starts with the offensive line. Everybody who sits here and points at the backs is the problem. They need to shut their mouths, man. I can't stand it. Well, we need to get different competition in here at running back. I don't care if you pulled Walter freaking Payton from the dead and put him back there. He's not going to be a world beater behind that offensive line. I'm sorry. So it all circles back to me. That's when I said, when I put the blame down on everything, 4 games of offensive line, 2 to the kicker, 1 to the coaching.
I think it makes sense. And I agree with you in terms of the philosophy. I think that is the winning philosophy that Pete Carroll has. And I think Darrell Bevell is the guy at offensive coordinator that executes Pete Carroll's philosophy the way that he wants to. That makes sense to me. And that's why I put Bevell a lot lower down in terms of any kind of blame on the coaching staff, because he's doing his job. That's what Coach Carroll wants him to do. That's the way he wants him to execute the offense. And the execution part, he can't control. And when it comes to offensive line, you can't control that part. And which is why what Doug Baldwin said, he asked the reporters, he said, do any of you guys watch film? I really question that sometimes. You make these narratives, you put these topics, these main titles and stuff, and it's like you all don't watch film. You don't watch tape. And it really pisses us off sometimes as players. I really wish I could say more, but I'm not going to. Obviously, I'm frustrated because we lost, but I really wish, do your job. I'm not saying to piss people off or be all mean, but I wish more people, if you're a journalist and your job is to do investigative reporting, that actually investigate and watch the catfish film.
I love it. How does that? I mean, what is your takeaway from that, Brandon?
It leads exactly into what you're talking about. The only difference for me, though, as a coach, when you recognize that you don't have the capability to do a certain thing, why do you do it week after week after week? Why not try something a little bit different this season? Because they tried all off season. That's what their plan was to find guys who could improve, who could help improve this team's run game. They got Eddie Lacy. They got Luke Jokel. They
made a run at TJ Lang.
They drafted Chris Carson.
Ethan Posick brought in Dwayne Brown.
Well, Dwayne Brown was later, but yeah, they made an effort to address issues along the offensive line in the run game, and it didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. And I think you said, well, why would you keep trying to do the same thing, and not get the results, if you're not getting the results? And the thing is that I think Pete Carroll and the Seahawks deviated as far from the running game there for the majority of the season as Pete Carroll could possibly stand to. I mean, Russell Wilson led the league in touchdown passes. It's not like they just, kept Russell Wilson's pass attempts to 15 to 20 a game. It's not, he was out there winging the ball around, 30 plus attempts multiple times this year. So they did go away from it, but they also recognized that at the end of the day, that's not going to be, you're not winning a championship that way. So maybe the idea is, well, let's keep trying. Let's keep putting in different personnel on the offensive line, keep rotating our backs through there, and see if we can recapture and find some of that magic in the running game that can really propel this team. Maybe not even necessarily this season, but at least we have some answers and some pieces for next season. I think that's part of the thought process. They're not thinking just in the now. They're also thinking about the future too.
But you know me, I think in the now. And look, I recognize that this wasn't what people consider to be a championship caliber team. But there's teams that aren't championship caliber teams that I look at that have won Super Bowls, which is why I'm an advocate of getting to the playoffs.
And usually those teams that are successful, that aren't championship caliber teams, have an amazing defense and run the ball.
And they don't last long, but that's not always. You see teams make a run
usually.
at it.
I mean, sure. I'm trying to think of a offensive centric team in the last 15 years that's made a run that shouldn't have.
Look at the Giants teams.
Those were defense and run the ball first. That's definitely who those teams were.
Those Giants teams weren't great defenses. They had
a hell of a defensive line, and that's why they beat up on Tom Brady for 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
They were a very good defense. They carried Eli Manning to 2 championships.
Eli had a lot to do with those 2 championships, though.
He had some.
It was after Tiki Barber left that they got both those championships.
Yeah, but they also had Jacobs. He was a big factor for them for a while. They always had some dude that would run the ball fairly effectively.
No great running back.
In all likelihood and probability, this team wasn't going to go far in the playoffs with the style of play that they could find some success with, which was Russell Wilson run around like a chicken with his head cut off and chuck it deep.
So run some plays. Come up with some plays to run. Why is that your best play?
Why? Because you can't throw anything on time and in rhythm when the offensive line is giving up Olays right out of the gate, which they did so many times. It's not even funny. And then on top of that, now, and I mean this as a criticism. I think this is a fair criticism of our quarterback. He's got some Derek Carr disease going on there, man. He definitely drops his eye level and starts running around way sooner than he used to. And that's going to be a really hard habit that he's going to have to learn to break in the next year or so. Do I blame him for developing that? No, I blame John Schneider for him developing that. You get smashed around like he does, and your only hope is to rely on your athleticism and get outside the pocket and make a big play. You're going to start looking for that sooner and sooner and sooner. And so that's why there's no plays to be called. The offensive line freaking stunk.
And going back to what Baldwin said, because I do think that is probably where he's hinting at. You said that he looked kind of off camera at someone.
Yeah.
And reading Bob Condotta's Seattle Times article, he has the quote in here. He says, "We played better," Baldwin said Sunday, turning to look at one of the Seahawks public relations officials as he did as if to indicate he would do as he was told.
I didn't know it was to the PR guy, but I knew he looked like at somebody, and he was kind of like, I really want to say some stuff here.
Yeah, he says, I mean, I would love to sit up here and tell you exactly what the problem is, but I'm not going to tell you that. We have a lot of work to do, and we have the ability to do it. But it's interesting that Bob, he put all that in there.
Yes. Okay, I'm glad me and Bob are noticing the same things. Yeah. Like, I found that fascinating because you could tell, like, he was swallowing his tongue, for, again, to protect the team. But he can't say it, but I will. The offensive line totally ruined this season. That and injuries.
And injuries, yeah. I see a lot of people calling for Tom Cable. Out of all the coaches, I think I hear that name the most.
Yeah.
Get rid of Tom Cable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sad, but I look back to a coaching change made this last offseason. Sherman Smith fired. Chad Morton brought in as running back coach. Did you see a whole lot of improvement? You can get worse by firing a coach. We could bring in a guy who's worse than Tom Cable.
Well, it's like trying to fire the receivers coach because the offensive line stinks.
There's a lot of there is talent on the offensive line, though. They have spent more draft capital on getting offensive linemen. So when you say the problem's offensive line, you can spend
draft capital and not bring in legitimate talent. Like, see, here's the thing: you draft somebody like Ethan Posick high, and then he's a center, but then you play him a tackle, and they're like, oh no, then I'm going to play him a guard, and then maybe he'll play a little center again, and then he'll go back to guard, and then and then Jermaine Ifedi, sure, we'll draft him high, we'll start him out at guard, and then we'll throw him out at tackle, and now we'll talk about moving him back into guard. Like, dude. Pick a freaking spot for these guys. Like that's the bigger issue there.
Well, that would be a Cable issue, right?
Yes. This whole cross-training catfish. I'm over it.
Then there's also the talent scouting issue.
Yes.
And that's a part of it too.
You bring in a guy in Posick who's just not strong enough. I mean, we'll see if he can beef it up this next year, but that was his biggest problem. He's just not strong enough.
Yeah.
Guys like Glowinski he's just a guy. Like, he doesn't have the type of athleticism to keep up with today's defensive linemen. Then you got a guy like Jermaine Ifedi, who I think has all the physical talent in the world, but he's a freaking mental case. And my only hope is that Tom Cable finds a way to channel his inner Breno Giacomini.
Right.
And to bring that back into play. Like, that's my only hope.
He did it with Breno, though.
That's what I'm saying. So I think there's a lot of factors at play. And they tried to get too young. They try to get too young and too cute. And not only that, but like some of these guys that you see on our offensive line go on and have good careers in other places. Breno's still in the league. Had a couple nice years with the Jets.
He didn't have a good year this year, though.
No, he's old now. But he went on and played well with the Jets for a couple years,
Sure.
along with Carpenter.
Yeah.
You saw Sweezy have a decent year in Tampa this year after getting healthy.
I don't know, a decent year. Maybe
He had a decent year.
Talking to Anthony, he's like, you can have him back.
Fine, I'll take him. But so that's another thing that's a little bit eye-opening is you watch these guys go on to other teams and play well.
Breno may be the one example.
Carpenter's
been okay, yeah. Especially, well, you haven't had a better left guard since he left, that's for sure. That job's been...
And he's been a perennial starter for the Jets since.
He had one good year, his last year. That was...
Yeah.
We talked about it, whether or not it was worth keeping him. And it's like, well, he had one good year.
But we've clearly made the wrong decisions on these things.
Yeah.
So you let the offense... You trade away Max Unger. You know, I mean, who's still playing at a good level.
Sure.
I mean, he's in the playoffs right now.
I don't know if he's as much of an upgrade over Justin Britt to where the Seahawks make the playoffs versus not making the playoffs.
Well, let's say you have him and Carpenter, you bring in Dwayne Brown, and then you got Fetty and what other clown you want to throw out there at right guard, name your dude. You don't think that there's a lot to be said for the continuity of having somebody with the leadership like Max Unger had? Like, and then maybe you have Britt playing right guard. Maybe he blossoms there instead of center.
Okay, well, now
I don't know.
Now we're going back to a Coach Carroll philosophy because Coach Carroll cares about the defense. We have all these high-paid guys on the defense. If you wanted to keep all those dudes on the offensive line and pay all those guys on the offensive line, then you don't have Richard Sherman on the team, or you don't have KJ Wright on the team, or Michael Bennett, or...
Well, you pay less having Max Unger on the team than you do Jimmy Graham.
Okay. That's one area where you can say you traded offense for another piece on the offense.
And it's more money allocated there. So if you wanted to pay some of the other offensive linemen, well, all that Jimmy Graham money could be going to a couple offensive linemen, Not that I'm saying trade Jimmy or any of that stuff. I'm just saying we're going down the what if hole, and it's starting to really bother me. But the whole point is that we've clearly haven't made the correct decisions when it comes to offensive line. And when you have a position group that is literally one of the worst in the league for the last 2 years, if you have one position group that is just a dumpster fire, especially one that is in the trenches, you will not overcome that.
It's really difficult, though, for a lot of teams to try and make changes in the offseason. And that's why I keep going to the philosophy of which coach belongs to which philosophy. Because you can say, are these players just not that talented? With James Carpenter and J.R. Sweezy, is it they're not talented, or is it because in this scheme they're not able to make it work and they can go play in another scheme somewhere else and they're just fine? So is it a Tom Cable? Is it his coaching? Is it his scheme? I'm trying to identify where the issues are. So and they all intertwine, so it makes it difficult to know how they all interact and work together. It at least offers a little bit of understanding of the complexity of it all.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. I think the other thing, too, is like trying to find the exact one person or reason or anything like that may not be the way to go about it. Like, if they did move on from Darrell Bevell, there comes a point when maybe just fresh blood and fresh ideas on how an offense should be run could do an offense good. Mm-hmm. Just look at the Rams, the difference between having Jeff Fisher and McVay. A fresh set of eyes, same talent for the most part. I mean, they got better at wide receiver, but, the same guys for the most part. And you see a night and day flip just by a change in coaching and a change in style. And I think that might do Russell Wilson good, is just having fresh blood in there. Some young, up-and-coming, innovative guy. I want an innovative guy. We have a quarterback who does not fit in the old school mindset of quarterbacking. And it's not the way he plays. We have this special, transcendent franchise quarterback of a talent. We need a guy that comes in and figures out how to use him in a way that looks totally different than the rest of the league. A lot like the Panthers do with Cam Newton. Not that I'm calling for, Russell Wilson to run quarterback draws all the time like Cam Newton and everything and be a running back. I'm just saying I want a young coach that thinks outside of the box that maybe can find a way to use Russell Wilson's skill sets better than an old school way of thinking about offense.
Maybe Bevell could do that. That's why I go back to Coach Carroll. Would he allow an offensive coordinator to have some of those out of the box ideas, Because I don't know if he would based on how the season ended with them trying the same thing in the first half every single time. Are you looking for innovation, or are you looking to do exactly what your philosophy says? Then a change at offensive coordinator is not going to make a difference.
Well, you act like you can't be innovative in the run game. See, that's the thing. If you can bring in an innovative coach in the run game, I mean, look at the Titans and the way that they've been doing things with the run game that's different than everybody else.
Okay, then you have to change out Tom Cable too, because he's your run game coordinator.
Well, there you go. I mean, again, I wouldn't be. There needs to be some fresh blood. There needs to be fresh ideas. Not because these are bad coaches or they're bad dudes or anything like that. There just comes a point when you run out of ideas. I mean, think about it in terms of the difference between good bands and great bands over the course of time. Good bands put out like an album, maybe two, right? Mm-hmm. Of like music where you're like, dang, man, I like the way that is. I like the sound of it. And like they kind of got their own feel and their own flavor and everything like that. And then after about an album or two, it just kind of drops off and you're like, God, who are these guys? Like, none of this is, you just run out of ideas. You run out of creativity. The great bands are the ones that do it for 3 decades. Like, they continue to be able to pull out that sort of creativity. That is such a rare thing in life that when you trickle that down to every other aspect of life, let's say being an offensive coordinator in football, you only have so many ideas before you run out of ideas. And it's just time for fresh ideas.
Well, it did sound from Coach Carroll's perspective that it's something they're going to look at this offseason. And I don't expect him to say anything negative right now, because you hear him talking about guys who are up for interviewing for jobs. We've heard this last week that Coach Cable potentially going to interview for the Colts job. Chris Richard potentially going to interview for the Colts job as well, right? There's going to be opportunities for their coaches, and that's why I wouldn't expect him to say anything negative as far as trying to tip his hand as to what part of the team they might look at to make changes.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have some sort of tip-off as to what he's going to do. That's for sure. I do know he's going to be back to coach team. He's not retiring.
That was good to hear.
I'm not surprised. I mean, again, if the news comes off of Twitter, probably not true.
This is something that you're going to hear with Coach Carroll every year now. He's the oldest coach in the league. It's one of those things that you hear over and over again. Pete Carroll's the oldest coach in the league. Russell Wilson's short. Jimmy Graham used to play basketball. All those things. Yeah. Now that Coach Carroll, with him being the oldest coach in the league, you're going to hear offseason speculation every year as to, is this going to be the year that Pete Carroll retires? And yeah, I think he only has 1 year left on his deal. One nice thing that he said, it sounded like John Schneider probably isn't, or he's convinced that he's not going anywhere because the Green Bay job opened up. John Schneider's not going anywhere. He signed a contract just last year.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. I know everybody started wringing their hands the second they saw that Green Bay job come open, because he's stated in the past that he would like to do that someday,
Sure.
You also change as a human being over time as well. And if you're this invested in this Seahawks process that you're given so much credit for, don't you want to be the guy that says, okay, here we are, rock bottom at 9-7, which is hilarious to say. I'm going to go ahead and be a part of this, turnaround to get us back, because we aren't that far away. We're not that far away from being a championship level team again.
Rock bottom, 9-7 finish.
Isn't that funny to think about? Like, just think about how frustrated and pissed off we are on this podcast today. And we're 9-7 and just missed the playoffs.
Yeah, well, at least we're not planning a parade around Cleveland for an 0-16 team, like one fan is.
Yeah, might as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to find something to cheer about there.
I think that as far as the 9-7 finish goes, I think I'm most disappointed that they're 4-4 at home.
Yeah, that's very disappointing.
Skins, Falcons, Rams, Cardinals.
Well, and 2 of them they gave away.
Yeah, Cardinals and Skins at field
3
goals.
of them then. Falcons, too.
Falcons, it just came up short.
At coaching. Oh, we gave that one away with coaching.
Yeah.
There's boneheaded decisions. So you mentioned that for the entire offseason, you're going to be hearing, or the next few years, you're going to be hearing the Coach Carroll narrative, retirement, come up again.
I think so.
The other one that you've been hearing, the way the Seahawks have come apart at the seams, this is just like when Pete left USC.
No, right.
It's just like when Pete left USC, when everything just unraveled and came apart. No, this is nothing like when Pete left USC.
No.
Pete left USC under a cloud of controversy, number one.
Yeah, Reggie Bush taking money, and they were about to get hit with losing scholarships, and
Yep.
that's a huge impact on a college team.
Yeah, it's a huge impact, and that's also, if you're looking for an escape route, that's the perfect time to jettison from that, which is what he did. I don't think Pete has any inclination that he is ready to give up on this run with this team quite yet. This feels very different than the USC situation to me, and I hear everybody barking about that. That's just another one of those narratives that I have a hard time buying into, and it's lazy.
Oh, it's fun to tie it to it. It's fun to tie Pete back to that, though, and remind everybody that he left USC when things were going downhill. So
yeah,
that's why it works as a story.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what's happening here.
There are going to be some changes, though, and I do expect changes. I don't know if it's going to be as drastic as some people are talking about on the defense. I thought it was interesting that Michael Bennett, he talked to Greg Bell at Tacoma News-Tribune.
Oh, God.
Saying that I probably won't be back next year. It just seems like a young man's game. I can see them going younger with younger players. That's part of the game.
You know, I love me some Mike Bennett. He's one of my favorite players on the team because he is hilarious. I like that he's outspoken to a degree, all that. I appreciate him as a man. But golly, he is a drama queen.
He's a drama queen. He's the Ben Roethlisberger of the Seahawks.
Oh, my God. Oh, I don't know if they want me back. It's such a young man's game. I put very little stock in what he has to say when it comes to things like that. I mean, when he was doing...
Because you hear it every year.
Oh, God.
He's all posturing to get paid.
Yeah.
Or some way to stay in the headlines.
And I don't know that he's saying it with a ulterior motive. I think that's just who he is. He gets done with it. I think he has a bad fight with his wife, and I bet you he's like, oh, she's going to divorce me. Like, it's all over. It was just over, which coffee mug he used one day, and everything's fine in an hour. But yet, he's oh, God, it's over. He's just kind of an overreactor to some of these things.
There's players on the defense where I think it makes sense to where a team would move on. Now, I could see them getting rid of Michael Bennett, but I don't think it would be because of talent. I think it would be because of maybe they felt like it was too distracting throughout the season.
Yeah, but that also...
I don't see any evidence of why it would be.
There's a factor.
Sure.
But I also think that is, as the season progressed, that became lesser than it did more, if that makes any sense. After a whole nother offseason and going into the next season, I mean, I guess unless, he gets arrested for something or he stirs up trouble or has trouble stirred up upon him, during the offseason, whatever, I don't see that becoming more. I would see that kind of fading.
There's very few guys on this team where you save more than $1 million against the salary cap by cutting them before June 1st.
Okay.
The guys on that list, Russell Wilson, obviously, you're not touching him. Bobby
Cut
Wagner.
him, he's a bum. Can't play, too short.
Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner, those are the two of the guys that I look at and say, no, they're untouchable. Sherman is interesting because he has an $11 million cap number, but he's injured, and I don't think you can release a guy while he's injured until he's back and well.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you can, but I think you have to pay him.
Yeah, but they're not. I mean, we're bringing Richard Sherman back this year.
Baldwin, you just restructured his contract, so you would save $2.5 million.
No, you're not getting. You're not getting rid of him. Yeah, Doug Baldwin will be on the team next year.
Earl Thomas, you would save $8.5 million of his $10 million.
He'll be on the team next year.
Cam Chancellor
won't be on the team next year.
There's a question about him with his health.
Yeah,
you don't save a whole lot, $2.3 million, but he may not be able to play. So
yeah,
Dwayne Brown, $9.7 million.
He will absolutely be back next year, but under a restructured deal.
You want him on the team. In
the coaching staff and the front office does too. Dwayne Brown will absolutely play the next 3 years in Seattle.
KJ Wright, $7.2 million of his $8.2 million contract.
He's staying. I mean, I heard his end of the year press conference, man, and he talked about building a defense around Bobby and KJ and Earl. Those are the three guys he talked about.
Averill is a guy I expect to be gone. $7.5 million.
Yep.
What Pete said about both Cam and Cliff, they're going to have a hard time coming back.
And I don't blame them if they don't, and I hope they put their health first. Absolutely.
Jeremy Lane's gone, $4.7 million.
Sees you.
And then you're getting down to the not so much. Michael Bennett, $2 million you save on a $7.2 million contract next year. In terms of talent, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, this is where when he's like, oh, I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back because his cap hit isn't that high.
John Ryan, you save $2 million of a $3.2 million contract.
That could be somewhere where you see John Ryan moved or cut or something.
Yeah.
this was his worst year by far.
And $3.2 million next year.
Yep.
I
could see us moving on from punter.
I could see that.
Yep.
And then Nico Thorpe, $1.8 million.
Yeah, and who knows what happens with him. I think it's going to be tough for him. There's just way too much talent in the defensive backfield. I think they're going to bring back Byron Maxwell if they can.
I could see him bring back Byron Maxwell.
And then we'll have Shed next year.
Coleman come back. Yeah,
Coleman's coming back for sure with Shaq Griffin. And, I mean, you start going up and down the DB group and, like, that's pretty loaded going into next year. Guys with experience.
That's why I think that this, as far as Sherman goes, with that $11 million, this offseason is the season that makes sense for the trade talks to ramp up.
Yep.
Because if you do bring back Maxwell, you do bring back Shed, you do draft another corner, they're going to be stacked.
You didn't feel like when Sherman was out that was the biggest loss on defense ever, did you?
I missed Cam more.
Yeah.
And you probably want to bring McDougal back now.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can bring him back for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, I think just with Cam, Averill, Jeremy Lane, Eddie Lacy coming off the books, who knows what they do with Luke Jokel. They were paying him left tackle money. You don't do that again on his 1-year deal. Everybody says, well, they're right up against the cap. Well, dude, there's a lot of dudes falling off the cap this year. Dwayne Brown gets restructured.
They're still pretty close to the cap, though.
Yeah, we'll see. Exactly. The whole cap number thing. Just remember last offseason we were trying to figure out, well, they can't do that. I'll put them over the cap. And then, suddenly they've got cap room, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's freaking magic. Don't tell me that they're up against the cap. Nobody's up against the cap.
Well, according to my favorite website to pronounce, spottrack.com.
I know it is your favorite one. Because you were what about how that's pronounced?
I was right. And you were wrong.
I was wrong.
It's okay.
You were right, Brandon.
But according to them, there is $17 million of cap space for 2018, and that is with Jimmy coming off the books, with Eddie Lacy coming off the books, with Luke Jokel. So, and there's some questions, I guess, if Cam and with the injuries with Cam and Cliff, I don't know how that works.
And who knows if they're taking into account those two guys, Jeremy Lane coming off, what you do with Sheldon Richardson.
Richardson's off too.
Dwayne Brown getting a redone contract so that your cap number's different. There's a million things. But
these are conversations that are going to help carry us through the offseason. So we don't need to tackle them all now.
No.
Deion Jordan, another one of those names that you haven't brought up, who is a restricted free agent.
Deion Jordan will be back.
Considering with him being a restricted free agent, because even from what we saw, even if you put him at the first round tender, because he was a first round draft pick, at that amount, I think that's a pretty good deal.
That is a good deal
for a pass rusher.
And if you're Deion Jordan,
pass rusher.
And if you're Deion Jordan, where do you want to be?
He said he wanted to be here
to get paid.
Yeah, he said this is where I want to be next year.
Yeah. When they resurrect you from being a football cadaver to a guy who made an impact with a little bit of time as he was shaking off the rust that he did, I'm not going anywhere else because I need to get paid.
And the guys who I'd be looking to see get paid this offseason, well, Dwayne Brown potentially restructuring his deal because he has 1 year left on his deal.
Yep,
I'm looking at the guys that have a year left. Frank Clark, another one of those guys.
He'll get an extension.
Tyler Lockett.
He'll get an extension.
And then you have free agents as well.
Oh, free agents from our team or from the league?
Free agents from our team, yeah.
Who would that be, I guess?
We talked about Jimmy Graham, Luke Jokel, Eddie Lacy already, Sheldon Richardson, Bradley McDougal.
It's only two of those guys that you'd probably bring back.
Yeah.
Unless Jokel takes a gigantic pay cut.
Luke Wilson, again, as a free agent. He was on a 1 year deal.
See ya.
Shed. I don't know if he's necessarily... he's on this list as unrestricted, but I don't know if
No, I thought he just re-upped last year.
Well, he was a restricted free agent last year.
Oh, okay.
He played on a second round tender. But I don't know if he played enough time for it to count. I thought I read somewhere that he was going to be a restricted free agent again, so I don't know about him.
Okay, all right.
Paul Richardson. That might be the biggest question mark as far as what he might get paid on the open market.
I'd let him hit the open market and then come back to me and let me know what your number is.
Because as we pointed out, cap space, not a ton. If you're looking at wide receiver, you're looking at the wrong part of the offense.
Absolutely. And not only that, but they're still high on Darbo. I don't know why. And then
we didn't see anything from him this year.
That's why I don't know why. I don't get it. But as far as between him and Lockett, I've heard people wonder about that. I mean, that's an easy one. I mean, one guy is a a dynamic kick and punt returner as well as a great receiver. And one guy is a dude that's barely stayed healthy and makes spectacular catches now and then, but not a consistent contributor.
We saw Jermaine Kearse go and be a more consistent contributor for the Jets this year and doing the same thing as the spectacular catches that he had in Seattle.
Yeah, we've seen Golden Tate do the same thing too. I think you could see Paul Richardson do the exact same thing. I don't expect him to be back.
And then you're getting into guys that, well, we talked about Byron Maxwell coming back. He'll be in the one guy. Blair Walsh, Marcus Smith, Ode Abushi, Terrence Garvin, Austin Davis, Matt Tobin, Dewey McDonald. Flip a coin on some of those.
I don't even know why you'd make the effort to flip a coin. I think all those dudes be gone. Maybe a linebacker or two. Who knows?
Guy like Garvin is he's only 27. He could come back and play for about the same as he did this year.
But it's going to be an interesting offseason. I think the team does need to shake it up a little bit. I mean, I think it's time. I mean, we tried just running it back this year, and between a really bad position group in the trenches and the fact that you had a number of Pro Bowlers go down on defense middle of the year, just wasn't meant to be. Couldn't do it at that point.
Bretton Sidney points out the offseason move that doomed the team. Although the Seahawks had their struggles this year, it was ultimately the decision to not pay Stephen Hauschka and bring in Blair Walsh, which cost the Seahawks a playoff spot this year. I'm not saying they played well enough to win the Super Bowl, but if Money Hauschka was playing for this team this year, they would have certainly made the playoffs. John Schneider and Pete Carroll made a big mistake here, and I do hope they learned from it. It's a shame to see this great team underachieve year after year because of boneheaded personal decisions like this one and the decision to let go of Alex Collins.
Brett, I couldn't disagree with you more on the Alex Collins thing. I really couldn't. Take any one of the Seahawks backs right now and put him behind that Ravens offensive line and give them the holes that Alex Collins has been getting, and you'll see them put up the same exact kind of production. Alex Collins is nothing special.
Eddie Lacy even?
He get 3/4 of Alex Collins.
Okay.
Collins has a little more speed, so he's able to bust a few. But I watch Alex Collins run. There was no amazing vision there. I watched him going for a touchdown, and he has one dude to beat, and the receiver's blocking him, and he runs right up the back of the receiver and goes down about the 3.
It was cool to see Alex Collins do all that, but none of that made me feel like they let somebody great go. It's kind of like when Justin Forsett went there and had a great year with the Ravens.
Right.
I didn't think, oh man, we could have used him. They could have. Alex Collins would have gotten 200 yards here, just like any of the other guys who got 200 yards rushing.
Right.
I don't think it would have been much better. But
yeah, the Hauschka decision, yeah.
I think the Hauschka decision was big. And the Bills in the playoffs now.
Yeah, they are. I guess that's the team I'm quote unquote rooting for, but I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm not a fan of any other team. There's some that I like better than others, but good luck, Bills.
Well, let's do this after the break, Adam. Let's run down the list of we'll categorize the playoff teams that deserve our sports hatred the most, and which you absolutely want out of the playoffs versus the ones you're okay with continuing.
Sounds good. Yeah, because I don't know what we just talked about for the first hour. Hopefully it was entertaining enough to you guys, but we didn't really break down the game. We didn't talk about how craptastic Cam Newton was and knock us out of the frickin' playoffs. We just sat here and was like, here's all the crap that I think went wrong. I don't know. Hopefully that was good.
I had no idea that a whole hour went by until I looked down, but here we are.
Me neither.
On to the second half of the show.
Sounds good.
And we are back to the second half of the show. Go check out Seahawkers.org. Seahawkers Booster Club is the official booster club of the Seattle Seahawks. And I want to talk a little bit about our playoff sports hate, the teams that we have the most sports hate for in the playoffs. But before we do that, I want to go back to the email from Bretton Sidney.
Okay.
He pointed out Hauschka. I talked about Jermaine Kearse. Here's two guys that people could not wait to jettison from the team because they had a bad year last year.
Yeah.
They had a bad year. Got to get rid of them because they had a bad year.
And Jeremy Lane, too. Now, while outplayed by Justin Coleman and Shaquille Griffin, Jeremy Lane wasn't like a dumpster fire liability out there. He was a decent stopgap guy until we ended up with Maxwell. Give him a little credit.
Yeah, he was good enough to where we could have got Dwayne Brown for him in the trade.
So, I mean, these were three guys.
Yeah. Guys can have down years and still be okay.
It's almost like we said something like that.
I know. I just wanted to point out how right we are to start off the second half of the show.
Well, then let us point out all the ways. And let me point out one more, Brandon.
Okay.
Eddie Lacy, 267 combined all-purpose yards this year.
Woo!
Didn't even make it to halfway of our bet.
Yeah.
Not even having Team China Food Chubster. All of y'all who've been listening since this offseason, we won, but it sucks. But we won. I don't know. We never. I think came up with terms for the bet.
I think we get everybody who was on Team China Food Chubster a gift certificate to their favorite restaurant.
I think that's pretty solid. I think that's the way we do that.
Yeah.
Well, let us know if you were on China Food Chubster. Now everybody will. Everybody wants a free meal.
Oh, I have all the names right here.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Do you want to hear them?
Yes, I want to hear all of my fellow all my fellow right people.
All of you who are right. Joining Adam's team, Clinton Bonner, Leo, Peter Brooks, Aaron Lane, Brian Graff, Taylor Cupp, Robert Gomes, Jason Kellogg, Hector Mark, and Ray Ingram.
Look at us. We were all belittled and told we didn't like our team and like all sorts of stuff, like on message boards.
Yeah.
We're not real fans.
I don't remember that, but...
Oh, it happened. There was real adversity there.
But now you can revel in your victory by getting a cheeseburger at your favorite restaurant.
That's fine. I mean, McDonald's gift certificates are probably pretty cheap, so that'll be good for you. Now, I will give you some credit. You were right about Jokel.
I don't feel good about that either.
No. I mean, he wasn't terrible. He was better than Lacy by a lot.
He wasn't $8 million good.
Well, no, but...
Do you bring him back?
Oh, if he wants to play for close to the veteran minimum, then you betcha.
Not veteran minimum, but if you're going to pay an offensive lineman who can play a little... You're probably going to have to pay him $4 or $5 million.
Nope. See ya. I'll take the risk in the draft.
That's what J.R. Sweezy money. Probably even less than J.R. Sweezy money.
Oh, way less. Who's going after Luke Jokel this year? I think you get him for next to nothing.
I bet there's going to be teams that go after him. I looked at the free agent offensive lineman. It's not pretty.
Mm-hmm. Don't tell me things like this.
That's not good.
So speaking of teams, you were talking about left in the playoffs and our sports hate for all the teams and everything and who you may or may not root for. I want to see a Vikings-Bills Super Bowl in Minnesota. One of those two fan bases that have lost 4 Super Bowls in a row could get a chip.
Those are my 2 teams too. Yeah, my top 2. I want to see that happen.
It ain't going to happen, but okay.
It isn't going to happen. The Vikings could happen.
It's going to be something crappy like Patriots-Panthers. Or Patriots-Falcons.
You know what I think? I think it might be Patriots-Saints.
That would be okay. Because I could at least root for Drew Brees. He's like the Tom Hanks of football, right? Like everybody loves Drew Brees. Nobody hates Drew Brees.
Anthony does not like Drew Brees.
Well, that's because he's dead on the inside.
and he's a Bucs fan, but
I know. Yeah. That's how you know he's dead on the inside. Yeah.
The team, as I look at the NFC, the teams I'm okay with getting there. Saints, Eagles, Vikings.
Agreed.
And maybe Falcons.
Nope.
I know for you it's not, but for me,
I hate those guys.
I put them at the maybe. And that's just because Dan Quinn's the coach.
Whatever, dude. I hope they choke on a bag of feathers.
And it would be a good story, losing the way they did in the Super Bowl and then making it back. And you know I'm all about good stories.
No, it wouldn't. That would mean the Falcons have been in 2 straight Super Bowls. That's an awful story.
I understand.
Disgusting. GR double gross. No, thank you.
Rams, Panthers, totally out on. I don't want to see either of those teams in the Super Bowl.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about the Rams, but the Panthers could do it. Although they went out there and they couldn't do squat against the freaking Falcons for us. Thanks a lot, Cam. What was it? You started the game like 0 for 96 or some crap like that. I couldn't throw it in the ocean. God, he freaking sucks. Throws everything off his back foot.
Yeah. Panthers win that game, and they're the number 3 seed.
Yeah.
And instead he goes out and puts up a performance like that, and now they're the 5 seed. They went from having a home playoff game against what would have been the Falcons or us. Right. Well, it wouldn't have been us because the Falcons, we lost.
Oh.
It would have. How much worse would it have been if the Falcons lost and then Blair Walsh misses that field goal?
Way.
That would have been terrible.
Way worse.
It would have been way. It would have been like what the Ravens had happened to them.
Yeah, I didn't even yell at the TV much when Blair missed that. I almost just chuckled.
Yeah.
I was pretty drunk at that point too, but yeah.
Well, in the Ring of Honor, there were about 4 of us that all commented at the exact same time. Well, that figures.
Yeah. I really don't want to see the Patriots go. I really don't want to see the Steelers go. I could get on board with Titans, KC,
Buffalo.
Not
the Jags.
Definitely not the Jags. Some people were suggesting, oh, that might be the team I root for. Why? Why would you root for those guys? They're punks.
And Bortles stinks. Like you want that to be your quarterback representative of the Super Bowl?
Negative.
No.
I don't want to see those uniforms in a Super Bowl.
No.
Until the Jaguars change their uniforms, they're not allowed in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so you're not even allowed to root for them.
Like, pick a color for your helmet. Just one, please.
I'm the same way. The top three, Titans, Chiefs, Bills. And in the same way, I'm kind of okay with the Falcons. I might be okay with the Steelers.
No.
And that's just because I like Mike Tomlin.
I'm over my Mike Tomlin crush.
Can you get over your Mike Tomlin crush?
Yeah, I'm not into Shaft anymore.
That's too bad.
His rah-rah crap kind of just annoys me now. But you're going to go out there and do it.
He cracked me up all season.
Plus, it's the Steelers. I hate that. I hate that organization.
It doesn't make me... I like them more than the Jaguars and Patriots.
Jaguars above them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The Jaguars beat us in a game and it got chippy in the regular season. The Steelers teamed up with another team in a Super Bowl and then beat us.
But they're playing for Ryan Shazier. He's a good dude. Okay.
Don't care. Nope, I'm out.
And on uniforms alone, they get the tiebreaker over the Jags.
Yeah, their uniforms are iconic and classic. Yeah, they got great uniforms. Too bad the rest of their organization is ugly from the top down.
You would rather see the Jaguars uniforms in a Super Bowl than the Steelers uniforms.
Yep. I don't want to have to listen to my brother-in-law either, so there's that. That's part of it.
They're pretty insufferable with pointing out how many championships they've won.
Oh, God. Yeah. Neat. You're one of the original franchises, and you happen to rattle off 4 before there was half the teams in the league. Amazing. Well, what an accomplishment. You guys are outstanding.
The people who say that they're going to stick with their division rivals through the playoffs.
Gross.
Yeah.
No way.
My dad used to do that.
Ugh.
I know.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know he did that. Okay.
Yeah, he did. So there were several times where he'd end up rooting for the Broncos in the playoffs.
Ugh.
Yeah. I don't know how he could do it.
Speaking of divisional rivals, we didn't touch on Bruce Arians out of the league. Carson Palmer out of the league.
See ya.
Yeah. I'm not gonna miss his stupid hats and his gloating. I'm not.
If it took a Blair Walsh miss for him to realize that it was time to hang it up, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, whatever. I just didn't need to see him celebrate on my sideline on his way out. Like, I didn't need that at all.
Yeah, I think in the press conference too, he said something about welcoming the press to his home field again.
See you later, dude.
Couldn't help.
I hope you fade
Couldn't
out
even show even a bit of class on his way out the door.
Nope.
Yeah.
None.
That's who we are, I guess.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who they bring in at coach. If it's somebody that's equally as hateable.
Tom Cable?
Maybe Harbaugh comes back.
No, Harbaugh's not coming back.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
You're sure about that?
Well, there's no quarterback there for him to... I could see him going to the Colts more than I could Arizona and reuniting with Andrew Luck.
There's no way I take that Colts job. That's a terrible, terrible job. Number one, the owner is freaking unstable, so you've got to deal with that, okay? Their GM isn't any good. And then on top of that, you're pinning your hopes to a quarterback that has spaghetti for a shoulder.
Yeah, if I'm Chris Richard, I take the interview and do not take the job.
That's a hard pass.
Thank goodness Larry Fitzgerald hasn't announced his retirement. I'm not ready for him to leave the league yet.
No, definitely not. He played at a high level again this last year.
I know.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens in Arizona. Now, they're the ones that are the furthest behind the 8 ball as far as their rebuild, right? Niners, you see, have kind of figured it out with Lynch there. I said when he was hired, I thought he would be a good hire. He has been. In the Rams, it'll be interesting to watch them fall back to earth next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how the division shapes up. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting year next year.
All right. Well, now that we talked about the unclassiness of Bruce Arians, let's talk about some classy flockers.
Yeah?
Got some new members of the flock this week, Adam.
All right. The streak is broken. I feel so much better. You guys are awesome.
First one in from Gerald Hunt in for $5 and a Seahawkers podcast patch.
Nice.
Says, there I was, suffering after our playoff loss to the Panthers at the end of the 2015-2016 season, looking for something to keep my fandom alive during the offseason. I found your podcast when you were doing draft prep for the 2016 draft. Why, Jermaine? Why do you have to false start so much? Why? You guys really flocked my life up, and I've been enjoying the show ever since. And yes, 2 weeks without new members is too long, so I've joined the flock, and I'm no longer a freeloader. It's never too late to change. Talking to you, Seahawks front office. Let's get some O-line. Thanks for the great content, and go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks, man. I appreciate it. It's always funny to me to find out how people came across the show and when. And like what time of year or what show it was that they were kind of like, oh, yeah, no, I'm in on this.
Yeah.
I like listening. Because like those draft shows and stuff like that, those are the ones I look at and I'm like, God, who listens to this and thinks this is worth a crap?
And here we're coming up on it now.
I'm so excited. My excitement is really high for all of that.
I enjoy talking to people like Rob Staten who are passionate about it.
That's true.
Because until a dude is on the Seahawks team, like once you're on the Seahawks, then I'm all in.
Yeah.
You're one of our dudes.
Yeah.
But before then, it's like, yeah, he could come play for us,
or he could play for the Rams. You know,
yeah. In which case, gross.
Yeah,
yeah. Why should I get excited about that?
Don't need the emotional investment. But one of the ways that we will definitely keep continuing off-season content is having you guys donate, like Gerald did there. That's awesome. Appreciate it, man.
Nicholas Pena Brown in for $3. Welcome to the flock to Nicholas.
Yeah, welcome, Nicholas. Does he officially get into the Patreon Pick'em League right at the end then?
Right at the end. I guess he could pick through the playoffs, but we don't do weekly prizes once we do the playoffs. So
okay.
It's all just jockeying for those final spots.
Oh, maybe he comes in with a high score. Maybe he comes in with a high score, shakes the whole thing up.
Last year, though, it came down to the Super Bowl to decide who won that Steve Largent jersey.
Yeah, that's true.
And actually, you know what, Adam? I haven't announced this yet.
Yeah.
If you win the top prize, it's not just a Steve Largent jersey. You have your pick now. Your pick between a Steve Largent jersey or a Walter Jones jersey. So one of the two Hall of Famers you can pick, and then that means second place gets what's left over.
That's amazing. Okay, so Hall of Famers for everyone.
Yes.
I love
First and second place. So.
That's awesome, man.
Or the top prize, depending on, because we do have the Seahawkers podcast Pick'em League that's the free-to-join one.
Right.
So that we have to look at the top place there, too.
Correct. But we'll have prizes for everybody. Because
we have so many prizes.
Because people like Nicholas are awesome and become a little flocker. Thanks, man.
Yes. And welcome to the flock to Luis Francis. In for $1. Stickers.
Oh, nice. Stickers and bonus shows, man. Well, thanks, dude. We appreciate it. That's all I was saying, man. Just get in for $1, dude. That's all. Like, and Lewis stepped up. Thanks, bud.
And then we had a few people wishing us a happy new year with raises, Adam.
Really?
Lisa Carlson, one of our members of the Ring of Honor, went up to the 12-12 level. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Lisa.
And Chris Boucher is up to 5, and Andrew Means went up to 5.
Nice.
So they get patches out to them.
They get some stinking patches?
Get some stinking patches.
Sweet.
And Andrew says, the end of the season has gotten me philosophical. I hopped on the Seahawks bandwagon during the 2013 Super Bowl run. I suspect around the same time as many of your other listeners. I watched in awe as we dominated team after team, and I went nuts when the confetti rained down in New York. Since then, I've watched all the games, bought the gear, and even become a member of the flock last year. But sometime this season, after the Falcons' loss, I think, I had a terrible thought. What if the Hawks become a bad football team? With a decimated LOB, a stubbornly bad O-line, and a calcified coaching staff, what if they lost as often as they won? Would I still be a fan? Would I still enjoy it? I look back at the past 5 years of fandom, Beastquake 2.0, Wilson and Sherman eating turkey on the 50-yard line at Santa Clara, Tyler Lockett's explosive runs, Baldwin's countless brilliant catches. I remembered praying that Ricardo would get up, watching Wilson's ankle fold in half and seeing those cleats on the telephone wire. Amidst all the touchdowns, interceptions, offsides, and false starts, amidst the hoarse voices and heart attacks, I found what keeps me cheering. At the end of the day, I don't watch the Hawks because of what will happen. I watch because of what can happen. No team has taught us what it means to never give up like the Hawks. Even when we don't win, we fight till the very end. It's easy to be a fan when you win all the time. True fans understand something deeper, something that transcends winning and losing. It's about the privilege of watching the best athletes in the world perform miracles of skill, grace, and determination week after week. So even though we're missing the playoffs, I'm actually going to up my monthly donation. And I think now, more than ever, is the time for people to show their true colors and join the flock if they haven't already. We are incredibly blessed to have a team that doesn't give up and 2 podcasters who don't either. Thanks, Adam and Brandon, for all the hard work, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks, man. I think he hits it right on the head, the idea that, I mean, even when through the lulls and the bad times, man, you stick with the team. I mean, that's when everybody says, they called me a bandwagon fan. Well, okay, you only are if you stop. And, he's not stopping, we're not stopping. And one thing to keep in mind, since we've joined the NFC West, sure, there's been some down years in there, but 8 of the last 15 seasons, the Seattle Seahawks have been the division champion.
Yeah,
so
we've been the champ more than we haven't.
More often than not, yes. Yeah, that leaves less than half for everybody else.
Yeah, Rams can win it here or there. The Niners win 1 or 2. Cardinals even won a couple.
So with this ownership group, for as long as Paul Allen is the owner of the Seattle Seahawks, I do not worry that they will become a perennially, that's a hard word to say, perennially? There it is, perennially. Wow. Lots of syllables. Perennially bad team. I just don't have much worry for that.
Yeah, thanks for the note, Andrew. One of the nicer ones I think we've got. Very well said. Appreciate it. And that said, we also take payment in positive notes because Victor and Palmer sent us a note, said, hey guys, what's up? Just so you know, I still haven't jumped off the bandwagon. I would donate, but I'm a 17-year-old with no debit card and don't want to steal from my parents.
Well, you might steal from your parents for us. Not saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah. He says, but as soon as I get one, I'll be donating. Love the show. You guys keep it up. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Definitely don't steal from your parents.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's booze and then steal booze from your parents. There's some good life advice for you.
I don't know. You have a story with that it's a bad idea.
It is a bad idea. My New Year's Eve when I was 18, I remember maybe an hour and a half of. And to this day, I'm now 38 years old, 20 years later. I can't even smell whiskey, and it about makes me want to throw up.
I was going to say, you don't touch hard liquor very much
at all,
based on that.
Yeah,
and I've heard the story a number of times. This is because you went into your friend's liquor cabinet.
Yep,
all the lines were on the bottles.
Yep,
and you emptied out just enough of each one,
right,
and made a mix.
Yes.
This is not a good idea.
Of probably 30 random liquors. We each had like a pint glass of 30 random liquors, right?
Uh-huh.
And I just moved out of the house and had my own place, and so we were going to celebrate New Year's like that, and we probably both downed that pint glass in about 20 minutes.
Ooh.
Just chugged them basically.
Ooh.
Woke up with puke everywhere. There's puke on my buddy's back because he had been over the toilet, and then I puked on him. It was terrible. It was terrible. And the next morning I had to go in, and this is back when you reproduce photos without a negative. You had to take a picture of the picture. And you had a little camera that you leaned over, and then you hit the button and poof, the flashes would go off. And I had to do that the next day, hungover, worse than ever. You lean over and then poof. Oh, dude, I lost about 30 times. To this day, can't do whiskey. I'll maybe drink 2 gin and tonics a year, but otherwise I don't do shots. I don't do hard alcohol. I don't do anything. It's just beer.
Well, there you go. Life lesson learned.
Yeah. So don't do it, Victor.
If you're going to steal their alcohol, steal the beer.
Yeah, right. Right. Thank you to everybody who got in the flock this week. I really do appreciate it. I know I was a little over the top last week, but it is appreciated. We want to keep this thing rolling. We want to get to that 300 members of the flock so that we can go ahead and do post-game shows where I'm drunk. And it's really be cool to get there. So we appreciate you guys' support.
So with the people that dropped off after December, that leaves us 52 people. We need 52 more members of the flock before next season starts, and we'll be doing post-game episodes.
Yeah, you betcha. So that would get you 3 episodes a week. That's a lot. We should have made that goal a lot higher. We almost need that to be a full-time gig at that point. But with the disclaimer on the post-game shows that if I am on a job somewhere...
Yeah.
Oftentimes I can't even watch the game.
Oh, yeah, there's sometimes it can't happen.
Yeah, but we'll do
it. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll throw one out there just on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. We can get some of the boys from the UK Seahawkers. I mean, I'm sure you could get Rob Staten again. You could get Anthony. Somebody.
Yeah, there's stuff we can do. We might shift things around a little bit. We can change it up. We aren't set to...
It's all an experiment.
Sure.
We didn't start this with a plan.
No. Why would we start planning?
I don't know. Makes no sense to me.
Well, looking at the Pick'em League leaderboard. Now, see, this is a question that I have. When I look at our Seahawkers podcast Pick'em League now, because we have 550 people in that Seahawkers podcast
Holy
league,
crap,
the one that's
really?
free and open to everybody.
Yeah.
I think there's people who have good scores now who are just jumping in and throwing their name into the hat.
Yeah.
Which is why that one we're going to announce on the show. And you have to be listening. You have to be among the top, and you have to be listening to tell us for us to get you your prize.
We'll have some sort of phrase or something they need to respond with.
Well, just, yeah.
Okay.
Something. They have to listen.
Right.
And know that they won.
Right. Okay. I agree with that. There probably are people to do that. I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, for one, we've told people that they have to change their name to
something good.
Something good. And Fifi Top's picks just makes me think that they don't listen.
They did nope.
That's at 2,400. So I think the real number one is PBRU Serious at 2,330. C-Monk 12, 2,320. The Cabana Boys, 2,270. Hawks Dozen, 2,270. The Blue and Green Mile, 2,260. So I think that's your top five right now. And that's that's the one that's open to everybody.
Where are you right now, Brandon? That's what I want to know.
I am at 1980.
Okay. Well, good for you.
Because I won this week. I don't know if you saw that.
No, you tried to rub it in or something on the Ring of Honor. It's like, good job. Like, you picked the most random week of football every single year correctly. Week 17. Like, nobody can make heads or tails of week 17. Like, for 2 years in a row now, like, your random crap picks seem to come to fruition in week 17.
Yeah. Well, there's four of us who got 150 points this week.
You're all evil sorcerers.
And that's all with the Seahawks loss as well. So congrats to the Sofa King, See Me Hawks, and Jimmy Groan, along with me. Come on, Restrain. Yeah. We all finished with 150
points. You pulled ahead of me in week 17. This is a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, well, my week 16, I actually picked last week because I know that you missed a week.
That's fine.
So last week I picked entirely teams who would benefit the Seahawks. Like, if their win benefited the Seahawks, I picked them.
You didn't have to do anything for me. I'm the one who didn't pick my own picks.
I'm just saying, I had a little bit of sympathy, and so it gave me some flexibility to only pick who I really wanted to win that week.
Okay. Which is what you do anyways.
It's kind of what I do anyways.
Yeah. Don't try to sit there like you're altruistic about it. Come on. It's a bunch of crap. So I'm 60 points behind you going into the playoffs. That seems insurmountable.
It might be insurmountable, but for the Sofa King and See Me Hawks, those two, they got the tiebreaker this last week, 31 points. I had 32 points difference.
Okay.
But those two, those are your top two. And then looking at our members of the flock leaderboard.
Yeah.
PBRU Serious, 2330. C-Monk 12, 2320. Harvin the Time of My Life, 2290. Hawks Dozen, 2270. And the Blue and Green Mile, 2260, your top five. So there's a little crossover there.
Yeah, there is. Yep. That's, one of the things you tried to say on your Ring of Honor post is that I was being a crybaby catfish. That's about missing a week. When have I whined about it? I just said that I did it and it was stupid. Like, I was mad at myself. When did I cry about it? I don't remember crying about it.
Just wanted to use your own term against you.
Well, don't accuse me of being a crybaby catfish. That's when I'm not being a crybaby catfish. Yes.
You're a little bit. You're like, oh, I missed my picks. Now I'm going to lose, all because of one stupid week.
That's not what I said. I said I missed a week, and I'm still going to kick your ass. That's what I said.
Well, we'll roll back the tape.
Okay.
We'll see what you say.
Yeah, I know what I say. Irrationally cocky stuff. That's what I say. I know. I'm gonna bank on. I have no idea what I said, but I'm gonna bank on the fact that that's what I said. That feels more like me.
All right. Well, what do you say we get into some do better and better at life?
All right, man. My do better this week is for the Cincinnati Bengals. Man, I don't get it. I don't get it for the life of me. I can't figure out the thought process in Cincinnati. Nobody can. They'll be a perennial mediocre team because after 99 years of mediocrity under Marvin Lewis, they extend Marvin Lewis. You want to talk about the idea of being a fan of a team that would be almost impossible to be a fan of? This would be one of them for me. Like, just to be totally happy and content with absolute mediocrity that is sliding into putridness. Like, it's getting worse and worse and worse. and you extend him again. If there was ever a team, like we're sitting here talking about, well, do we need drastic change on the Seahawks? And like, blah, 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 blah. If there was ever a need for drastic change, it's in freaking Cincinnati. And with the head coach, they put up a graphic about like his accomplishments, 125 wins. What, over 99 seasons? What an accomplishment. 7 playoff appearances. Great, 7 one and dones. Like, 4 head coaches hired from his coaching tree. One of the people from his coaching tree just coached an 0-16 season for the Cleveland Browns. And this is the guy that the Cincinnati Bengals have now re-upped for, I believe, another 2 years. For being just a stupid franchise and annoying the piss out of me and every Bengals fan. Do better.
Man, remember back in the day of Marty Schottenheimer getting fired after losing to New England in the postseason, or Philly fans wanting to fire Andrew Reid because he could never get more than an NFC title?
Right.
And Marvin Lewis, 15 years as a head coach, has as many playoff wins as you and I have.
Right.
0-7 in the postseason.
Send him. And he's got a team that is undisciplined, plays dirty.
I mean, I guess you give him credit for going from a team that you laugh at to the epitome of mediocrity.
Whee!
I mean, that's progress, I guess.
No, it's not. Dude, living your life in mediocrity is probably the worst of all situations. I'd rather live in either like the worst case scenario or the best rather than mediocrity at all times.
You know what? I agree with you. And that's why the Bengals are my do better this week, because mediocre is a terrible place to be as a fan of a football team. At least if you're terrible, you have hope. You have hope that when your team will actually make some moves to turn things around, but not when you're a mediocre Bengals fan. No, you're stuck there.
Forever.
Man, Bengals, do better.
Yeah, man. I'd much rather be in a spot where like I'm at the worst, where I know I got to make changes and like, there's really nowhere to go but to get better. That's a great motivating place to be. So that's a great spot to be right there, or to be on the good end where you're winning championships or at least competing for them every single year. I mean, the idea that you're going to sit there and go 8-8 every year, it's like the Redskins in the idea that they would sign Kirk Cousins to a long-term deal. No freaking way. No way. Not in a million years.
Have fun going 8-8.
Yeah. Have fun having, Matty Mediocre as your quarterback in Atlanta.
Well, at least he took him all the way once.
Yeah. One hot year. Had a Joe Flacco year. Congratulations.
Yeah. Joe Flacco didn't have the chance to have a Joe Flacco year. Thanks to Andy Dalton. Late game touchdown pass, costing the Ravens an opportunity to the playoffs. But that leads right into my better at life this week, Adam, because that touchdown pass, that helped his foundation earn a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Now, how did this happen? Because of Bills fans. Bills fans were so thankful for Andy Dalton's touchdown pass to knock the Ravens out of the playoffs that Bills fans everywhere started donating $17 a piece, $1 for every year that it's been since last time they made the playoffs, to help raise more than $170,000 for Andy Dalton's charity. For Bills fans, for being grateful and recognizing when a good thing happens that allows your team to sneak in the playoffs, they find a way to make good and pass on their thanks to Andy Dalton by donating $17 to his charity. Bills fans, better at life than Skip Bayless.
I would have liked to have thought that if Cam would have somehow beat the Falcons and Blair Walsh would have made a field goal, that Seattle fans would put Good Hawker out there and also donate to Cam's foundation as well. I'm sure we would have. So maybe my do better should have been for Cam Newton, because look at all the money he left on the table for his foundation by not beating the Falcons.
Yeah. Way to go.
Screwed it up. But yeah, that's pretty cool for Bills fans there. That's for sure. I mean, no playoffs since 1999, man.
Been a while.
I was 2 years removed from high school.
Yeah. Was that still in Flutie days? Did Flutie make the playoffs with the Bills?
Sort of.
As a backup for Rob Johnson?
They benched him for Rob Johnson in 97.
Was 99 the Music City Miracle?
No, that was 97, I think.
So in 1999, they made the playoffs, and they lost to the Titans 22-16 in the Music City Miracle. Okay,
so it's 1999. All right.
Starting quarterback Rob Johnson, rather than Doug Flutie, who had started 15 games and who led them to the playoffs. So, Adam, you jumped off the bandwagon
No, I've been lying this whole time. I thought that was 97. Apparently I've been a Seahawks fan since 99 then. Take 2 years off. That was the year.
That's what did it for you.
I was so furious about that.
And that was the devastating loss. It was that heartbreaking loss in the playoffs.
No business having. They should have won that game. You get rid of Flutie Magic for that bum Rob Johnson.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Anyways.
17 years. How it
flies by. So yeah, stick with your team no matter what. It makes you better at life than Skip Bayless. You know what else makes you better at life than Skip Bayless?
What's that?
What makes you better at life than Skip Bayless is if you're a nerdy engineer that like makes apps for phones and tablets and stuff, that if you make your app go both ways, both vertical and horizontal, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the world. Like when you have an app that only works in one position or the other, don't limit me like that. Like, what are you doing? It goes both ways. You know that all the devices go both ways. All of them. And you're going to limit it to go one way? I can't stand this. So right about preseason this year, Bleacher Report made me update my app on my tablet, and it changed it from being able to go both ways to just being vertical. And guess how my stand on my tablet doesn't work? Vertical. And so when I'd sit here and do shows and be looking up stories and stuff as I wanted to read about stuff and everything like that, I had to read it sideways for this entire freaking year. You know what happened just today, Brandon, while I was looking up stuff as we got on the show today?
It switched.
Some nerdy Bleacher Report engineer came up with the idea that maybe their app ought to go horizontal too. And lo and behold, it works correctly again, and I can read things right side up. So to whoever that nerdy engineer is, whoever made the decision to fix their app, you are better at life than Skip Bayless. This really helps my life.
It's a good day for you now.
It is. Yes, I'm very...
That's nice. Maybe we need to find that same nerdy engineer.
I know. I didn't want to talk about it.
To fix our Seahawkers podcast app.
Well, you don't need it to go one way or the other to listen to something.
That's true.
So that's where, like, it's not like you're reading... articles of content and tweets and crap like that.
That's pretty critical. You do need it to go sideways for that.
Yeah. So now it goes sideways.
Although I'm pretty sure if you go to seahawkerspodcast.com/Windows, if you have a Windows phone, it doesn't. iPhone, you're out of luck.
Really? Okay. I think on an Android, it doesn't. It only goes vertical.
Seahawkerspodcast.com/Android. You can get our app.
Nobody has a Windows phone. Who has a Windows phone?
I think there's at least 2 listeners that still have a Windows phone.
Really? Do they have it sitting next to their BlackBerry?
Maybe.
And I'm like tech behind. Like I'm like a caveman when it comes to tech, and like even I don't have a Windows phone.
I think Adam still has an iPhone 4.
It's the smallest freaking phone I could get. Like when I go in there, I don't need another computer to put in my pocket.
Yeah.
I need something that goes ring ring, bleep when a text comes through, and be able to look up some stuff on a map, maybe check an email. I don't need it to launch a space shuttle. It's a phone.
Well, see, you carry a phone and a tablet. Some of us split the difference and just carry one. So take it easy. I
have to have both to do a show on the road.
That's true.
Yeah, I carry a tablet to do tablet things. I carry a phone to do phone things. I don't carry a phablet to do both.
But you can.
I could, but I can't fit it in my pocket.
Before we get out of here, it is the first of the month, and we shout out to all our monthly contributors of $12 or more. So, running down the list, thanks to DCH in Sparks, Nevada, Ron in San Francisco, Ross in Eureka, California, Ella in Woodway, Texas, Christina in Manassas, Virginia, David in Camas, Washington, Summer in Vancouver, Sven in Teltow, Deutschland, James in Linwood, Hector in Seattle, Craig in Camas, Washington, Keegan in Colorado Springs, Roe in Federal Way, Jameson in Murray, Utah, Young in Anchorage, Gary in Chappaqua, New York, Keith in Covington, Washington, a.k.a. Floctimus Prime, John in New York City, Tim in Austin, Texas, Kathy in Eureka, California, Garrett in Northern Ontario, Kevin in Keene, Texas, Paul in Jacksonville, North Carolina, Mark in Curup, Western Australia, Crystal in Oldsmere, Florida, John Paul in Palmer, Alaska, Taylor in Edmonds, Mike in Anchorage, Brandon in Huntersville, North Carolina, Craig in Pasco, Annalisa in New York City, Sam in Altadena, California, Pepper in Greenville, South Carolina, Thomas in the Bronx, Glenn in St. Cloud, and Lisa in Seattle. Thank you all.
Oh, man, you guys are awesome. You're all MVP candidates in my book. I'm just saying. It's going to be hard. You're all splitting my vote, though.
You can split it, 20 ways, 20, 30 ways.
All right, you're all 1/30th the MVP of the podcast.
And if they all tie, they all have to share the MVP award, so congratulations.
Congratulations on your 1/30th of an MVP. Love you all.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.